Well, the Rugby Championship this morning has not disappointed. The All Blacks against the Springboks has just finished. If you're looking to avoid the result, then click off the video, come back to it once you have caught up. But what another unbelievable finish. Just like the Wallabies against the Pumas, a game that really built into a crescendo at the end where, I'm not even South African or New Zealand, but my heart was pounding. So All Blacks fans, Springbok fans, let me know how you're feeling in the comments down below. What did you make of the game? What did you make of the result? And what do you make of the performance of your team? Because loads to take out of this game. I will do my best to summarise my thoughts, which after a back and forth test match like that, which we've just witnessed, isn't always the easiest thing to do, but I will do my best. You can have your say in the comments. Like the video whilst you're here, and I would love it. If you haven't already, just hit subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and you're not going to miss a single thing on the channel. But another great game, and it is the All Blacks that get the victory. Eden Park still stands. That record is intact for all the talk of would it fall? Would this be the year that it finally falls with the double world champions, South Africa coming into town and everything else? New Zealand had enough in the end. And I think were the deserving winners here, weren't they? It was a pretty tight game in the end. Overall, I don't think there can be too many complaints. And it was a funny game. It was really similar, I felt, to the Wallabies-Argentina game, actually, in that it built into an amazing finish. We've had two blockbuster finishes. But before that, the game was a bit of a slow burn, I thought, particularly in the first half. And the question it came down to at the end was, could the Springboks find a way? Was this about to be another occasion where we witnessed a Springbok team who were by no means at their best? There are, without question, still question marks around this team and where they are at the moment and how they're playing and all that sort of stuff. But despite all of that, they found themselves with, their final try in 74 minutes. So the final 5-6 minutes of the game, this Springboks team still found themselves within a score. Were they going to be able to get that score and get the draw almost against expectations based upon what we'd seen for most of the 80 minutes up to that point? They came close, but not quite. And maybe if we ask why is that, it maybe reveals just why this Springbok team aren't currently where they have been previously when they have been world champions, not quite being able to execute in those key moments, some key areas and key errors at key times that hurt them here. And then also partly because of Mr. 100 capper, Ardie Savea, coming up with a huge steal close to his own try line late on. But let's try and summarise it, shall we? So for me, it was a game, it took time to build into the game that we expected. I thought it was a ruthless start. New Zealand scoring the two tries pretty quickly, and you always felt like that could be key because we expected it to be a game that was really tight and an arm wrestle and a lot of tactical kicking. And it actually wasn't that at first. It became that, I think, after about 20 minutes. But by that point, New Zealand led 14-3. The two tries, the one right at the start of the game, really well executed. I think Villy Leroux will be frustrated by himself with how he defended the crossfield kick, and the Springboks were pulled out of position for the amount of space that was out there. But a ruthless start, really well executed from the All Blacks. The Will Jordan try as well. But in games like this, 14 points like that, a 14-point swing so early in the game can be pretty hard to claw back, and that proved to be the case from a South African point of view. To give the All Blacks the credit, though, is first of all the execution of those moments, and secondly, tactically, I don't think it's too often in recent times that you've seen a team tactically go up against South Africa so well in the way in which they were able to disrupt them. And I think there's two really good examples of that. There was the Wallace Satiti disruption from a line-out. Do you remember when, I think it was Peter Steff won it in the line-out, and Satiti was round the back so quickly to make the chuck down towards Grant Williams really awkward. It ended up, I think it's actually a Satiti knock-on, but it was a really good example of New Zealand clearly knowing what to expect, knowing what was coming and disrupting it. And another example of that was the midfield maul, which has become a talking point this year, hasn't it, of these midfield mauls that they set up, kind of lifting a player in the middle of the park. New Zealand sacked that brilliantly when the Springboks tried it. I think that was the only time that they tried it during the game. They were really, really well prepared. And it's not too often, particularly in the Erasmus era, that you've seen things like that and you kind of feel like the opposition are almost more prepared for the Springboks with what is coming at them. So credit to New Zealand in that regard. But after about the 20-minute mark, I felt like it did turn into the game we probably expected. Lots of kicks, tactical, not too much free-flowing rugby. There wasn't too much getting it to the edge. It was probably more of the game that we anticipated beforehand. And a big thing for the Springboks, I felt, was their inability for a lot of the game to be able to build pressure. We saw crossing on a couple of different occasions. I jotted down a note of one on 52 minutes when they're in the All Blacks 22. Crossing just kills the momentum, penalty to New Zealand. Oxenche, when he was held up over the line, was quite a good example of you don't always have to fight to try and get the ball down. Sometimes you're better off placing it back on your own side and recycling and going again. And it all points to me, and I suppose one of the questions from my point of view at the moment for the Springboks and for Springbok fans is, why is there a lack of cohesion? Or why does it feel like there's a lack of cohesion? Because still in this game, that was a massive theme, as it has been in the 2 test matches against Australia. Drop balls, crossing, sloppy mistakes, and it all leads towards an inability, I think, to build pressure consistently. It came later on, like that scrum was unbelievable, which led to one of the tries when Quagga Smith picked up from the base and got really close, and then Malcolm Marks, I think, wasn't it, that crossed over. But overall, it feels to me like there is a lack of cohesion for the Springboks. Having said all of that, you still get yourselves in touching distance. You still score the try, you get yourself back in touch. And this is where I think the frustration will really come in from the coaching point of view, because the error after, I think it probably was the Malcolm Marks try, must have been. I think the error after the Malcolm Marks try, not collecting it at the kick-off, giving away a penalty, that then led to a situation where Quagga Smith gets yellow card. I didn't know there might be some frustrations with Quagga Smith going in there, pretty cynical penalty. But the whole reason that you end up in that position is because of the error at the restart. It's those sorts of moments at the moment, for me, from South Africa's point of view, that is going to be so frustrating. It just leads to question marks of where this team is at the moment. And I'll get back onto that at the end of the video in just a moment. Because for all of that, for all the areas, for all the lack of cohesion, for all the mistakes and bits of frustration, they were still within a score late on. Like, this South African team probably aren't that far away, but it's still those moments that are just absolutely killing them at this moment in time. I'll get back to South Africa and ask where are the Boks at the moment in just a second to finish the video. Another word on New Zealand, because loads of question marks over New Zealand heading into this game. And I think they just won some of those key moments a little bit better. From the start with the execution of some of those tries, the Ardie Savea turnover at the end, they just had enough, didn't they? They're still not the finished article, I don't think. But certainly given some of the pressure I think that was on them coming into this game, all the talk of Eden Park, is that record going to fall? Like, you can imagine the reaction if you're the All Blacks team that let that record slip. Huge amount of pressure on them, and I thought they did really well today. It was an ugly game at times, but they had some real moments of quality, and we saw that. They scored those tries, and they held on at the end. As for South Africa, where are the Springboks? I find this a really hard question to answer, because on the one hand, you could look at this performance and say South Africa are miles off it at the moment from the previous, admittedly ridiculously high standards they've set when they've won back-to-back World Cups, when they've won the Lions Tour, when they've been the #1 team in the world, when they won the Rugby Championship last year. Like, that is one hell of a CV, I suppose, for this team to have. But despite that, they are off of those standards. But they were within a score at the end of this game. So you could point towards it and say, well, how bad is it? To me, I think there are major question marks over this team at the moment, because we've had 3 matches in a row now where, as I say, the cohesion, the drop balls, the sloppy mistakes are really, really costing them. And why is that happening? Because I don't think they are bad players, but it certainly feels to me that these are the biggest question marks that the Springboks have faced in the Rassie Erasmus era. And partly that is because of those standards that they have set. And when you set those standards, you also get judged against them. So then when you start slipping off them, the contrast maybe looks more stark. But given the fact of how poor they were in some areas of that game, to be so close, I think they're going to look at it and maybe view it as a bit of a missed opportunity. You give me your views. I'll leave it there. Sometimes it is a bit of a scramble to try and organise your thoughts after a game like that. An unbelievable finish. Credit to New Zealand for seeing it out. They are top of the Rugby Championship, followed by Australia. Then I think it's Argentina, isn't it? And then it's South Africa. Who would have predicted that at the start of this competition, that the Boks would be bottom 3 rounds in? It is living up to the hype. That is one thing, isn't it? You know, all this talk at the moment of, is this going to be the greatest rugby championship we've seen? At the moment, absolutely, categorically, yes. It has been brilliant. Give me your views down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.